Hey guys, Virginia here. I would like to welcome you to the COLAB, the Central Ontario Laboratory. We are here to educate, inspire, and activate. Welcome to the COLAB.
Hey there, I'm Virginia. This is The Hair That Lives on Top, and today we've got a very special guest. Today we are starting our three-part series on VR.
And I'm Jamie Dorn. I'm the Executive Director of Research, Innovation, Entrepreneurship here at Georgian College. I'm coming to you from virtual reality today because this is the first of our three-part series on VR. And we have a really special guest, as we said. Well, I should take this off so I can actually see you. So we have a really special guest. Her name is Isabelle Deschamps, and she is the principal investigator on a research project that we've got going about VR. And we're going to learn about that. But first, we're going to learn about Isabelle. So, hi, Isabelle. Introduce yourself and tell our audience who you are and what you do.
Hi, so I'm Isabelle, and I've been teaching at the Aurelia campus since 2017 in the Human Services. I teach in early childhood education and general education, and I teach a lot of the research courses, which is one of my passion. Before coming to Georgian, I completed a postdoctoral fellowship in Quebec at Laval University, looking at how the aging brain changes as we go through our different life stages in order to understand language development and how we can actually support, for example, decline in language abilities in older adults. And then I had a switch of heart, and I decided that teaching was a passion of mine, and it's not something that I could fully explore in my postdoc or at university. So I came to Georgian and I started teaching, and I have been here ever since. At Georgian, I have the possibility to actually combine my two passions, which are teaching and doing research. I've done so far 2 independent research projects at Georgian, looking at how we can support students. So the first one started in 2019, and it was looking at how we can support international and domestic students that start in their first year of college. So it actually looked at what are the factors or the barriers that these student population face and what we can do as a college to support them. What was amazing is that despite the fact that COVID put a halt to the data collection, we were able to still collect enough data to see that while students, first-year students, do share similar struggles and barriers, they're not equally shared, meaning that, for instance, for domestic students, one of the biggest barriers is balancing their academic life and their personal life. But for domestic students, it was more about finances and having access to public transportation or knowing where to go when you're new to Canada. And especially when we're thinking about the different campuses, some of them are in smaller communities, so it's a little bit harder for them to learn to navigate around. The second one actually was built based on COVID. So when we shifted to remote learning online, one of the things that I noticed as faculty is that some students that were doing very well in the classroom, when we shifted online, things didn't go as smoothly as possible.
Didn't have the skills to switch to online?
And it was hard for them, but what's amazing is when we think about the self-regulatory skills, the learning skills in the classroom and outside the classroom, they are similar, but they're not used to the same extent. And sometimes I think the translation between time management in class and time management at home is not exactly the same. So what we did is we ran an online study, and we looked at how students scored on different self-regulation learning skills. And we also measure, because mental health is also a huge part of today's society. So we measured levels of depression, anxiety, and stress in our student population to see if we could find correlation between the ability to use self-regulatory skills and how stressed or how depressed students were feeling at the time. So it was a very inclusive study from that perspective. And what was amazing is we also asked students, what are we doing as a college that's helping you with these skills, and what are what are we doing that's actually not really helping, in your opinion? So we had both quantitative and qualitative data, which is really exciting because we have numbers, but we can explain the numbers. So we can say, well, okay, they're scoring really low on this facet of self-regulation with regards to learning skills, but we know why we're not supporting it this way in the classroom. So we're still looking at the data right now because there's lots of data, but it's really interesting because it actually can tell us, okay, well, these are some of the strategies that we might as faculty, but also as a college, focus on to help students navigate this remote learning.
Mm-hmm. And remote learning is going to be a bigger component of education going forward, right? And so these kinds of strategies could be helping our students in the future.
Did you find that teaching remotely yourself, what did you find the changes for you were like when you went to switch to teaching?
The connection that you make with students. So I'm a firm believer that learning is a shared experience. So I learn from students as much as they learn from me, but doing it online on a video where most of the time I can see myself, but there's not everybody feels comfortable opening their video. So you see black screen, so it makes it very hard from a personal or human perspective to make a connection. What all you see is black screens, and also when you are teaching and you can look at the class and see, okay, well, I just lost this student, right? They look completely lost. I have to backtrack. When you're learning remotely on a computer, if there's no screen and they're not sharing in the text message or like the chat box, not text message, but chat box, it's very hard to gauge, okay, are they still following me or have I lost half the class? So for me, that's one of the biggest challenging, and also being able to sit with them before class or after class and then, sharing experiences or them telling me, well, okay, you know what, I really had a hard time last week. Can we go over some stuff? Of course, but it's harder when we are.
I've had that feeling of being in the room of black screen and just screen names.
Yeah, like is anyone listening to me?
And I found one teacher who had a really great idea. She got all of her students to put a thumbnail image of themselves so that at least she would be seeing their faces.
Oh yeah.
So she's like, I just want to have that little bit more human connection that I can get, even if it's just you changing one thing about your black screen, turning it into your face instead. So a lot of the students in her class, they all did it. So when I went in to do a workshop, I could see all of the students' faces because even though their cameras were off, I could still see who was there.
Yeah.
And that sort of made me feel a little bit better, I guess, about teaching online.
I think it's a great idea. For me, what has happened, because I teach out of my office sometimes, and I'll have a cat that jumps, and then they'll see it, and they'll be like, okay, yeah, okay,
You're human.
You're human. Your office is not, it's not perfect. Life is not perfect. So some of them will actually turn their camera after. They're like, well, don't mind the mess at the back, and I'm thinking, I'm just happy to see faces.
Yeah, just happy to see somebody there.
Yeah.
So, during the COVID lockdown and such, and over the last year, we have been experimenting at Georgian with a bunch of different virtual technologies. So we have a grant that we got that's from Future Skills Center Canada, and that grant is about the digital transformation strategy that Georgian College is implementing. So I mentioned at the beginning that Isabelle is our principal investigator for this cool grant. It has 3 pilot projects in it, and we're going to talk to you mostly about pilot number 2 today because it's about VR and teaching neuroanatomy in VR.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So, but we also experimented, with other ways of connecting remotely with students and other staff. And we used this thing called what we call the iLearn Campus, which is a Verbella virtual campus. It's like a video game where you got a character running around in there. So it's on a screen, a flat screen, but it did help us solve one of the problems that you were talking about, Isabelle, where you were saying you don't have connection to your students because they're just on a screen. But when you're in this virtual campus, you're running around and we each have avatars and we can see each other.
I had a moment in there when we had a big group of people in one area and I started seeing people who I hadn't seen in a really long time, and I sort of started running my avatar over them and like, hey, oh my God, it's so good to see you.
Yeah.
And then realizing, oh my goodness. And then we had to try and decide on a place to sit down. And when we were trying to sit down, I was like, I want to sit with my friends. Like I want to sit at a table with my friends so I could see all my friends' faces.
Well, let's edit some video in there of our iLearn experiences. You can watch some of this stuff. Here's a video of us running around and of the campus, and there's some forest areas. Yeah, we had Virginia and I had our birthday party in the virtual world. It was good. It was better than a birthday party in the real world because you could kind of eat the cake and it had 0 calories. So it was fantastic. But I did say we were going to talk about this because this is part 1 of our series on virtual reality, and we want to talk about what we call Pilot 2, but really it's a study of, let me say if I get it right here, Isabelle, you can correct me, but it's about the efficacy of using 3D immersive VR to teach neural anatomy, because that's kind of, neural anatomy is so easy to learn, but we figured, could we make it even easier if you learned it in VR? So Isabelle, tell us a little bit about that project.
Of course, and I'm sure students are going to be really happy to hear that neuroanatomy is easy to learn.
It's simple. It's just a brain and then a whole bunch of things that come down from the brain. Like, how hard could that be?
So what's cool about this project is, having taught neuroanatomy before at university, one of the struggles that students have is to understand how the brain is, right? So unless you have access to a real brain where you can see and do some dissection, it's very hard sometimes to explain how structures work together, or how things are connected and things like that. So this pilot, what we're using is a software called 3D Organon, and it has the entire neural system. So we're focusing on neuroanatomy to begin with, but what students are doing is we created actually a virtual lab for this pilot.
Okay, wait a sec. Virtual lab, what does that mean?
It means that we have a shell on our learning system for students, so Blackboard, where we embedded not only the course content from the 2 courses that we're targeting right now in health and wellness, which are anatomy and physiology.
Right.
And we have created for research participants a step-by-step instructions on some of the things that they can do with the immersive VR. So how to use the VR headsets, what are some of the structures, for example, that they could be looking at, and how to look at them. Because for some people that are new to VR, like myself, the first time you're using it, it's not always easy to figure out, okay, well, how do I rotate the brain? Can I take this part out? How do I put it back?
Yes.
Right? So you don't have a bunch of parts all around. And what's great is we also have created on the virtual lab so students can document their experience when they're trying on the different modules. So one is on the, if it's on the cerebellum, they can document how how much time they spent. And we also included pre and post measures, so we can see if there's a benefit to using immersive reality in learning neuroanatomy. So students can self-diagnose before they start the module to see, how good am I really at neuroanatomy. Then they engage with the activities, and it's directly related to the course content. And then there's a post test where they can see, how well they do after engaging.
Oh, cool.
And we're also measuring how well they engage with the technology, but how are they likely to keep on engaging. Because if it's something that's frustrating, then we know students are not going to be I want to spend X amount of time more on stuff that's not going to work.
Exactly. If the process of doing the thing is too hard to learn the thing, then what is the point of trying to do it in the first place? But it sounds like you've got something pretty interesting going on.
So here I've just put my headset back on, and I'm in the 3D Organon program, and I got this body right here in front of me, and I'm able to kind of see it in 3 dimensions. It feels like it's right in front of me, and I'm able to control some of the layers on the body, right? So I can get right down to just seeing the neural system, and I got the skeleton here. And so this is really, really wild. It's like I can see everywhere each of the nerves are going. It's so, why would a view like this that's so, immersive, I can feel like it's right in front of me, why do you think this is going to help teach neural anatomy?
So from my perspective, what I thought was very interesting when I learned about this project is the concept of embodied cognition.
Embodied cognition? Yes. So what is that?
It's a fancy term to say that when we experience things, when we have sensory experiences and motor experiences tied to the learning, these things that we're learning are going to stay better. So if you're able to, for example, move around the skeleton, push things away from the skeleton to see some structures better, then you have more sensory information and motor information than if you're just looking at an atlas, right, where you're reading and just kind of looking at a 2D image.
Yeah.
So because of that, we know that there's more chances that the brain will actually remember this information. So the concept of embodied cognition has been around for a very long time, and it's usually tied to language. So how we learn language, we learn it from speaking it, right? And things like that. And there's motor representation of how we speak. So it's kind of the same idea, but applied to the field of virtual reality, which is one of the advantage that virtual reality has over other methods of teaching, is that you can actually target some of the mechanisms involved in embodied cognition. On top of being also a medium that students really enjoy, right? So younger students, younger generations, they're very comfortable with technology.
Oh yeah, it's awesome in here. I'm not young, but I love it in here. It's great. You should did the whole video or whole interview in here.
It's because they're more motivated. So that's also an important component in learning, is that if students are motivated to engage with the content, it's going to stay better than if they're not, right? And if we think about anatomy, some of us might be thinking, okay, well, it's kind of a dry subject, but it can actually be very fun and very engaging. But it's one thing that VR allows us to do, is to actually augment the motivation that students feel towards experiencing and engaging with the course content.
Do you have any feedback from the students on it yet?
No, we just started data collection at this point, but I tried it, and for the first time, and one of the things that I really thought was amazing is it's more fun, right?
It's more fun. It sure is more fun.
And some of the things, like for me when I was teaching it, so for there's like a bone, the hyoid bone, it's very hard to describe where it's located, but on a 3D skeleton it's very easy, and then you can make sure that
zoom right in.
They're right in it, they're seeing it, and they can see how like different muscles are attached to different structures, so it's much easier, I think, to explain.
I think that it would be really helpful, like just being able to physically see it and
Touch it.
Like a bonus is that you don't have to get the gross body part to it. You can just get the like VR part and see the whole thing without actually having to see the whole body.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Virginia, because I tried it, and way back when, I don't even remember what year that was, in the 90s, I took anatomy when I was in school, and we dissected all kinds of stuff. And, you have to kind of take everything apart carefully and see all the different, veins and muscles, and then you get down to the nerves and all that kind of stuff. But you get a sense of where everything is by doing that, but it was disgusting. And you're supposed to then do an exam to see where everything is, but it's really hard to get a full picture in your head, because it does kind of get taken apart in a weird way, and it's really hard to get a full view of what the whole, say, neural system looks like. But second I went in 3D Organon, and then you click all these buttons here, and you can take away the different layers, and suddenly I'm down to just the neural system. You can actually get rid of the skeleton, so all that's left there is just the brain and the nervous system. And so then suddenly it just clicked. I was like, oh,
So you're ready to teach.
The brain is just like a giant octopus that's just attached to every one part of our bodies here. So it was really, really cool. Like, just suddenly I was like, oh man, yes, I get it. It's like so cool. So I'm hoping that other students are going to get that kind of epiphany, and not just with neural anatomy, like that's a good place to start, but other parts too, right? And other subjects too.
And I think what's great with 3D Organon is because you have the whole skeleton, like it's not just restricted to neuroanatomy, is that it's actually useful for different programs, right? Even not just like health and wellness programs, but maybe other programs that, want to talk about a specific aspect. Like I'm thinking communication science and disorder assistant, they can maybe want to talk about, well, where is Broca's area? Well, here, let me show you on the brain where is Broca's area, and we can look like at different language model and how things are connected. So I think it's great for a a variety of programs, which makes it more usable at the college. It's not just specific to one program. I can tell you from the non-immersive, so 3D Organon also comes as a desktop application, and the feedback that we have had from students is that it's fantastic even on the desktop, because while it's not immersive like the headset is, the information that's available and the possibility of still moving things around is very helpful for the learning. So they're using it sometimes on their own.
Oh, cool. That's good.
Just to supplement their own learning. Yeah.
Yeah, if you had a quick question in your mind, you'd be like, wait a second, how did that work again? And you quickly turn it on and do a little exploration. That's amazing. So we recently, we went on a little bit of a field trip to Montreal to see an exhibit called The Infinite. And the reason we did was because it is a different kind of virtual experience. Normally when you use your VR headset, you put it on and then you've got this bubble around you, and if you leave the bubble, you leave the virtual experience. And we were wondering, we heard about this thing in Montreal and a really cool exhibit where you put the headset on, then you can walk around in this room that is the size of almost like a gymnasium. So there are boundaries, like that when you put it on, suddenly you're floating in space. So Isabelle, I'm curious to know, when you did that experience, did you have any thoughts about how we might use a simulation like that in a teaching environment?
I think it would be great because you could actually take students on field trips, right? You can take them places.
Yeah.
And I know then this would even broaden the scope even more, because we were talking about a very specific program, 3D Organon, that's related to anatomy, but VR can do so much more.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about human services, early childhood education, being able to, take students on a field trip and say, well, these are some of the things you have to prepare for when you're taking children in the field, I think would be great. So I think it broadens the scope. We also have programs where they have to do surgery with animals, right? So having that kind of environment
where you can walk around, like a large animal or something like that.
They can walk around and the teacher, the professor is, with them, and then you can see from different angles and some of the things to consider, but even also for therapy, right? Practicing counseling skills in that kind of environment where it feels like you have a real person in front of you, where you're aware of their body movement, they're aware of theirs, because that's what it was like for me when I experienced it, is we all have headsets, but you can see the other person as like
this shape. Yeah, the 2001 kind of space odyssey.
Imagine if every gymnasium could also be that. So if every gymnasium wasn't just a gymnasium, if every gymnasium could sometimes be a gymnasium where they're playing basketball, and then suddenly you're in, a different country exploring and explaining, how parts of the rainforest work, and showing the different levels of the trees and being able to zoom in and show things like that. Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool?
We're totally in holodeck territory, Star Trek technology here. There was one thing that was neat about that experience too, was when they talk about the metaverse, I don't know, we'll have a whole show on that, so we'll get to it, but it's like, the virtual worlds all connected together into this metaverse, but they talk about something called the digital twin, and what that means is like take everything that you see around you right now and just make a digital copy of it, so even if I put my headset on, I'm still going to see the same thing, and then I can superimpose all kinds of cool stuff on it. And so in this exhibit that we saw in Montreal, they did that a tiny little bit. When at one point there were some chairs that you had to go and sit in. So you can only see the chairs in virtual reality. So you had to trust that there was actually a chair there. And I know we discussed afterwards that if it was a teaching environment, you could have this kind of digital twin, or if it was like say a hospital room in your virtual environment, but there's actual objects that you can pick up and move around, and there could be even mannequins and stuff that you work on, but in virtual reality, you see it as a real person rather than a mannequin.
That reminds me entirely of the movie Free Guy, where he puts the glasses on, and it's an entirely different world, and you take the glasses off, and it's his regular world, and then it's a completely different world. So when you said digital twin and you can like put stuff on top of it, I was like, oh my God, Free Guy.
We're so close to that. There's going to be people walking down the street with these kind of goggles on. I guarantee it.
Well, I think we have come to the end of our episode, and so we must ask our guest, could you please tell our subscribers to like and subscribe and comment below?
Yes, please follow the link to comment and subscribe to the channel. It's a great opportunity to learn more about what we're doing here at Georgian College and what's available with regards to virtual reality.
Well, thank you so much, Isabelle. This has been really great. Part 1 of our three-part VR series.
And our first in-person.
Oh my God, we forgot to say that right at the very beginning. This is our first in-person film shoot for the COLAB since this COVID thing hit us hard. So, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.